Rural Economic Development Minister Gudie Hutchings has stirred up controversy by suggesting that Western and Prairie provinces should elect more Liberal MPs if they want to have a say in the federal government's carbon pricing policy. Hutchings made the remark in response to a question from a reporter about the recent changes announced by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to the Liberals' marquee climate policy, which included pausing the carbon price applied to home heating oil for 3 years in Atlantic Canada and increasing the rural top-up rebate from 10% to 20%. The minister said that the changes were made after listening to the concerns of Atlantic Liberal MPs and their constituents, who rely heavily on home heating oil and face higher costs of living due to the carbon tax. Hutchings said, "If you want to have your voice heard, you need to have representation at the table. And that's why I encourage people in Western and Prairie provinces to elect more Liberals who can share their perspectives and influence the policy decisions that affect them." Hutchings added that the Liberal government is committed to fighting climate change and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but also recognizes the need to balance environmental and economic interests. She said, "We have a plan that works for Canada, that puts a price on pollution and returns more money to most Canadians through rebates, while also investing in clean technology and innovation. But we are also open to making adjustments based on evidence and data and outcomes, as we have shown with our recent announcement for Atlantic Canada." The minister's comments drew sharp criticism from opposition parties and provincial leaders, who accused her of being arrogant and divisive. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who has vowed to scrap the carbon tax if he becomes Prime Minister, said that Hutchings' statement shows that the Liberals are out of touch with the realities of Western and Prairie Canadians. Poilievre said, "Instead of listening to the people who are struggling under this punitive tax, the Liberals are telling them to vote for them or else. This is an insult to millions of Canadians who are fed up with this government's failed climate policy that hurts their wallets and does nothing for the environment." NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who supports a carbon tax but wants it to be more progressive and fair, said that Hutchings' remark is another example of the Liberals' hypocrisy and broken promises on climate action. The Liberals claim to be listening to Canadians, but they are only listening to their own MPs who are worried about losing their seats, Singh said. They are not listening to the Indigenous communities who are facing the impacts of climate change, or the workers who need a just transition to a green economy, or the young people who are demanding more ambition and urgency. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney, who has been locked in a legal battle with Ottawa over the constitutionality of the carbon tax, said that Hutchings' statement is a slap in the face to Albertans who have contributed greatly to Canada's prosperity and energy security. Kenney said, "Instead of respecting our province's right to develop our own climate plan that works for our unique circumstances, the Liberals are threatening us with more taxation and regulation if we don't vote for them. This is unacceptable and un-Canadian. We will continue to stand up for our interests and fight this unfair and ineffective tax in court." The carbon tax has been a contentious issue in Canadian politics since it was introduced by the Liberal government in 2019 as part of its climate plan. The tax applies a price on carbon emissions from fuel combustion and industrial activities, starting at $20 per ton of CO2 equivalent in 2019 and rising by $10 per ton each year until it reaches $50 per ton in 2022. The federal government then announced in December 2020 that it would increase the carbon price by $15 per ton each year after 2022 until it reaches $170 per ton in 2030. The federal government claims that the carbon tax is an effective tool to reduce emissions by creating an incentive for consumers and businesses to switch to cleaner alternatives, while also returning most of the revenues collected through rebates to households and supporting sectors that face competitiveness challenges. The government also argues that the carbon tax is within its jurisdiction under the Constitution as a matter of national concern. However, several provinces have opposed the carbon tax, arguing that it infringes on their provincial authority over natural resources and taxation, and that it imposes an undue burden on their economies and residents. Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario and Manitoba have launched legal challenges against the federal government over the carbon tax, with mixed results so far. The Supreme Court of Canada is expected to rule on the matter soon. The carbon tax has also been a divisive factor among Canadians, with different regions and groups having different views and preferences on the policy. According to a recent poll by Abacus Data, 57% of Canadians support the carbon tax, while 43% oppose it. The poll also found that support for the carbon tax is highest in Quebec, 69%, British Columbia, 64%, and Atlantic Canada, 60%, and lowest in Alberta, 34%. The carbon tax is expected to be a key issue in the next federal election, which could be triggered any time as the Liberals are governing with a minority in Parliament. The Liberals have made climate action a central part of their agenda, while the Conservatives have promised to scrap the carbon tax and replace it with a different system that would divert the revenues collected from large emitters to personal low-carbon savings accounts for individuals to buy green products. The NDP and the Greens have called for more ambitious and comprehensive climate policies that go beyond pricing carbon.